Every night, hundreds of thousands of Americans sleep on the streets, while billions of dollars flow into wars fought thousands of miles away. The contrast is staggering. Global power pursued at the cost of domestic well-being. Why does this imbalance persist? Let's dive in to uncover the truth. The United States has long been recognized as a global superpower, a nation that prides itself on maintaining strength, influence, and leadership across the world. But this global role comes with a staggering financial cost. In 2024 alone, the US allocated over $886 billion to military spending. This figure represents more than half of the federal government's discretionary spending, meaning funds that are not already tied up in mandatory programs like Social Security or Medicare. With such a significant portion going to defense, less money is left for critical domestic programs, such as affordable housing, healthcare, and education. To put the scale of US military spending into perspective, the US invests more in its defense budget than the next 10 countries combined, including China, Russia, and India, countries often considered global competitors. While the spending is justified as necessary for national security and maintaining global influence, the immense costs leave many wondering why such funding isn't directed or redirected to address pressing domestic needs, like homelessness, rising healthcare costs, or improving public schools. The imbalance raises important questions about national priorities. Yet, while the US builds advanced weapons and funds foreign conflicts, nearly 600,000 Americans are homeless on any given night. Among them, about 40,000 are veterans, people who once served the very military that now dominates government budgets. For many, this raises a troubling question. Why is there always money for wars, but not enough to solve homelessness? One reason lies in the geopolitical priorities of the US government. Military spending is often justified as a way to maintain social security, protect its allies, and uphold global stability. For example, the US provided over $114 billion in aid to Ukraine between 2022 and 2024 to support its fight against Russian aggression. Similarly, the US allocates billions annually to Israel to ensure its security in a volatile region. These investments are framed as necessary to prevent larger conflicts and protect democratic values around the world. But these global commitments come with trade-offs. The money spent on military aid could be used to address urgent domestic issues. Consider this: the war in Afghanistan, which lasted 2 decades, cost American taxpayers over $2 trillion. That's enough to build affordable housing for every homeless person in the country several times over. Instead, many cities in the US face severe housing shortages, skyrocketing rents, and shelters that are overwhelmed by demand. So why hasn't the government redirected more resources to these domestic challenges? One explanation is the influence of the military-industrial complex, a term coined by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1961. He warned of the growing power of defense contractors, lobbyists, and politicians who profit from high military budgets. Today, companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon earn billions from defense contracts, creating a powerful incentive to maintain and even increase military spending. This influence isn't just about profits, it's also about politics. Lawmakers often argue that military spending creates jobs, boosts local economies, and strengthens America's global standing. While these claims hold some truth, studies show that investments in healthcare, education, or housing create more jobs per dollar spent than military programs. For example, building affordable housing not only provides shelter, but also generates construction jobs and stimulates local businesses. Yet these benefits are often overlooked in favor of defense priorities. Public opinion is a powerful force in shaping government decisions. And it's no different when it comes to military spending versus addressing homelessness. Many Americans are deeply frustrated with the government for failing to tackle the growing homelessness crisis. For these individuals, the imbalance of spending feels like a betrayal of basic responsibilities to its citizens. However, there is another side to this divide. Some Americans firmly support high military budgets, believing they are necessary to ensure national security, protect allies, and maintain America's influence worldwide. This perspective is often fueled by the idea that a strong military presence abroad prevents larger threats from reaching home soil. This division is rooted in decades of US foreign policy decisions. From the Cold War to the War on Terror, American leaders have prioritized global dominance, even if it meant reducing investment in domestic welfare. As a result, this long-standing tension between global intervention and helping people at home continues to shape public debate. This focus on military spending over domestic welfare is not new. After World War II, the National Security Act of 1947 established the framework for America's modern defense strategy, emphasizing global intervention and intelligence gathering. By the 21st century, the War on Terror brought another surge in military funding, particularly after 9/11. Each of these periods saw calls to reduce military budgets and redirect funds to domestic priorities, but these efforts often faced strong political opposition. The result? Homelessness continues to grow, while federal funding for housing programs remains insufficient. In 2023, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, reported that nearly 2 million Americans experienced homelessness at some point during the year, a sharp increase from previous years. Of these, over 440,000 were chronically homeless, meaning they had been without stable housing for extended periods of time. Many of these individuals suffer from mental health issues, substance abuse disorders, or disabilities, conditions that require significant investment in healthcare and support services. At the same time, federal spending on housing assistance has declined significantly over the past few decades. Programs like Section 8 vouchers and public housing construction receive a fraction of the funding allocated to military programs. For example, in 2023, HUD's budget was just $73.3 billion, less than 1/10 of the defense budget. This disparity highlights the government's ongoing prioritization of global power over domestic stability. The choice between funding overseas wars and addressing domestic issues isn't just a matter of money. It's a reflection of values and priorities. While military spending can protect national security and support allies, it shouldn't come at the expense of Americans who lack basic necessities like healthcare and shelter. Rebalancing these priorities is not only possible, but essential for creating a more equitable and just society. The time has come to ask, what kind of future does America want to build? If this topic resonates, share this video and spark conversations about how the US can better balance its global role with the needs of its people. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Together, let's advocate for change and demand a government that puts its citizens first.